So understanding if it's really important to them, we need to validate that. We need to say, yeah, that's tough. I'm sorry. I remember when I was a kid and that really bugged me. Or, there's things now where I wake up and I'm like, oh, and I don't feel great. And so being able to say, that's human, it's okay, rather than, come on, that's not a big deal. Well, now you're just making them feel crappy about feeling crappy. And that's not helping anyone, right?
Welcome, Dr. Cam. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited. We met through a mutual friend on Instagram, and I'm so glad that she connected us because I've been checking out your stuff online, and I love what you do. So can you please explain to people what it is that you do and a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an adolescent psychologist and family success coach. And I came through that title because really my whole focus is helping families succeed. And I specialize in working with parents and their teenagers because my belief is that teenagers are the most misunderstood age group there is. And so my goal is really to help parents understand what's going on with their teens. I think we misinterpret their behavior a lot. And so being able to understand why their teens are behaving the way they do. And then I also work with teens and help them understand their parents and what their parents are trying to say. Because again, there's miscommunication both ways. And what I have found is that parents and teenagers want the very same thing. And I think both of them don't think they do, and they do. They just don't know how to ask for it and how to communicate that. And so I like to jump in there and just be that mediator and help them understand and communicate. And my belief is that adolescence can be one of the most enjoyable stages for parents. And I am a mom of a teen, so I live it every day. And it is one of the most enjoyable stages as a parent.
Absolutely correct. I feel like they are the most misunderstood. And I've found, because my children are 13 and 14, I have found that stage to be really rewarding and beautiful. Although I'm not going to lie, it is a little challenging sometimes. So one of the things that attracted me to want to have you on my stage here is because you're an expert with this and how to communicate better with children, specifically with teens. I know that it's not easy for everybody, and we don't have the same type of child with the same characteristics. I have total opposites, and I'm pretty sure a lot of parents can relate to that. So can you give us a few tips, anything that you're seeing that is very common that can be?
Oh, yeah. I will tell you, and I know every teen is different, every parent's different, every dynamic's different, and yet I see the same problems over and over and over again. And so one of the biggest things that I tell parents every time is that the most essential thing for them is to remain calm. And there's a very clear reason why we need to do this. The teen brain is actually going through an enormous growth spurt. The only other time in our human life that our brain grows this quickly is when we're infants. We're learning how to speak. We're learning how to walk. We're learning how to understand the world. During adolescence, we go through another huge growth spurt with our brain, and we're learning things like how to regulate our emotions, how to make good decisions, how to problem solve, how to think critically. And what we don't understand is those are things we're learning. We're not great at to begin with. So that's one of the things that I think parents lose their minds over and get so frustrated over because our kids don't do it well yet. But we have to remember it's because they're learning how. When our kids were learning to walk and they fall over, we don't get upset that they're falling over. We know it takes practice. It's the exact same way for our teens. It's going to take practice, and we need to help and encourage them and guide them. The other reason I talk about being calm is during this growth spurt, our brains are growing unevenly. And so the part of the brain, which is called the amygdala, that is responsible for the fight or flight response, the knee jerk, the risk, the all the emotions kind of taking over, and the way that we just respond, the knee-jerk response, right? That fully develops by the time we're about 11. And the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that is the part that says, hey, let's make a better decision. This might not be the right thing. Let's rein in those emotions. That doesn't fully develop until mid to late 20s. So our kids are just, they view the world and they experience the world through emotions and these instinctual responses, and they don't have the capacity yet to calm it down. So when we come at it with as parents and their emotions are big and we allow it to impact us and our emotions get big, the only thing that's doing is putting fuel on the fire and creating more emotion and causing our kids' brains to just get more unable to focus and be rational. So it's only making matters worse. And so when we get in there and we yell at our kids or we criticize our kids and we spark that, they read that as danger, their entire fight or flight response just goes berserk. And nothing good is going to come out of that. It's just going to get worse. So we need to be the calm, because we've got the prefrontal cortex that can do that. So we've got to be the calm ones. And when we're calm, they will eventually get through their emotion. They'll get through it faster and they'll become calm too.
I love that you mentioned that, because I heard that a few years ago. Actually, my sister, who is a child school psychologist, he mentioned that. So that has actually helped me calm down when I'm really getting frustrated because my child is not understanding. And my husband will sometimes come up to me. He's like, remember, her brain is not fully developed yet.
Right. That's right.
I'm like, oh, yes, right. Okay. So I have to really tell myself, like, hey, she's struggling too. And then we take a different approach. And I'm not going to say I keep my cool all the time. I lose it sometimes.
Hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. But, I like that you mentioned that you help children understand the parents too. Because in my household, that's definitely been something that we work on, because my kids too can't understand why we do certain things or why we tell them that they can or cannot do certain things. And they always say, well, you just don't remember what it's like to be a teen. And I say to them, actually, you're right.
You know what? They are right.
Yeah. I don't deny it at all, because it's true. Like, I remember some parts, but it's different than living it in the moment. And I do acknowledge that, some things were very important to me back then, but that intensity that you're feeling at the moment is not the same than remembering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I think as adults, we have this different perspective. We've lived life. We can compare it to other things, right? And we're like, okay, having a zit on your face is not the end of the world. But you know what? When we were teens, it was the end of the world. And remember, it's because it's your whole brain is just focused on, it's the emotion. You can't rein it in. When you're a teen, you've got this spot. It's like the spotlight effect where you feel like everyone is looking at you and judging you. I mean, it's not a great feeling. And so when kids have a zit on their face, they feel like that's all anybody in the whole world is going to ever notice. And that's built in. So understanding if it's really important to them, we need to validate that. We need to say, yeah, that's tough. I'm sorry. I remember when I was a kid and that really bugged me. Or, there's things now where I wake up and I'm like, oh, and I don't feel great. And so being able to say, that's human, it's okay, rather than, oh, come on, that's not a big deal. Well, now you're just making them feel crappy about feeling crappy. And that's not helping anyone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you do sessions with parents and teens virtually right now, or do you only focus on the podcast?
No, I actually do sessions. And my favorite, I work with just teens. I work with just parents. My absolute favorite is the families I work with. And so I get the entire family in there and we work on understanding one another and communicating and just bringing families back together. Because, one thing I tell parents is I've been working with teens for over 2 decades as a mentor, and just being able to help and counsel them. And I've yet to meet a teen that doesn't want a better relationship with their parents.
Oh,
Are
wow.
none.
That
And
is, yeah, that's amazing. That's so
not one.
clear.
They just don't know how to have it. And a lot of them don't think their parents want a good relationship with them
Mhm.
because all they hear is all the things they're doing wrong. They
Yeah.
hear criticism, they hear judgment, they feel like they're disappointing them if they're not living this perfect, imagination. They see what their parents want of them, and parents do. We want the best for our kids, but we're giving them a message that they're not valuable to us unless they become this. And so we need to be very careful on how we're communicating to our kids what our aspirations are for them, to make sure they realize that who they are right now is absolutely wonderful and beautiful. Even if you feel like they're being disrespectful and you feel like they're not being kind, I want to reiterate they're doing the best they can. And if they're coming across that way, it's not because they are unkind or that they are disrespectful. It's because the behaviors you're perceiving as that way, and they need to learn new ways to cope and new ways to communicate because they're learning.
Yeah.
So rather than getting mad at it and getting frustrated with it, let's take a step back and go, okay, if I don't like this behavior, let me understand why they're behaving that way so we can address the why. And then let me teach them better ways to communicate that don't feel disrespectful and don't feel unkind.
Right. Ooh, I love this. I feel like I'd have such an amazing session with you because I have so many questions going through my head because, when you're really upset and you see that they're very upset too, sometimes you can't find the words. And you know that
Mhm.
you're trying to be that bigger person, that mature parent, and your mind says like, I just want to say this, something petty, but then like the mother in you or the parent in you is like, no, I need to like translate that pettiness into something mature so that we can have an open communication. So I'm pretty sure that the children go through the same process too. As a matter of fact, I know with my kids, sometimes they tell me it's like, yeah, sometimes I say dumb things that I would never say to you in my head.
Mhm.
And I say, okay, well, I love that you told me that. But please, yes, always keep it in your head because once it comes out, you can't take it back,
Right. But like we said, so for the parents, we have trouble holding that back. And
Mhm.
we don't always hold that back. And again, we've got the prefrontal cortex and the experience to be able to hold it back. Our kids don't have that. So they don't have the same capacity we do to restrain themselves from saying that, which is why a lot of this stuff comes spewing out because they don't necessarily want to say it, they just don't know how to stop it. Because when you talk to kids when they're nice and calm, they know the right thing to do. They know they want to do it. No kid wants to get in trouble.
Yeah.
No kid wants to disappoint their families. No
Mhm.
one. They can't help it all the time. And
Yeah.
then we get really angry with them and they feel like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Because I don't know how to stop it. And then they just feel like I have a lot of teens coming to me just saying, I don't even care anymore. I don't care anymore because nothing I do, I can't do anything right. So I just don't care. I just stop trying. And that's a frustrating place for them to be because they want to care and they want to try. They just don't know how.
Yeah, and I find that a lot of them look for that validation from their parents, and sometimes when a parent says it would be great if you, for example, if you went to Harvard or an Ivy League school or whatever, they take that to heart. So you have to be very careful how you deliver that information because some kids might think, oh, now I have to go to an Ivy League school. And they feel like if they don't, that there'll be a big disappointment or that they haven't achieved something great in life. When maybe it was just a simple conversation where like, yeah, you know how we all dream. We're like, oh yeah, it'd be great if you went to Ivy League school, but it's not that
Yeah.
you're imposing that standard on them. It might be, yeah, the lack of communication is definitely, it can happen in such an easy way. It's almost like a very fragile I don't know. I don't even know how to say it, but it's like a fragile situation because sometimes kids do take it to heart, like way more than you'd ever know until you're having that conversation. And then you realize, oh, you really think that I expect you to do X, Y, and Z? No, that was just me saying stuff, you know?
I think what you're saying right now is such an important point to bring out too, is that how we mean something and the way that we think we're communicating something, our teens hear it in a very, very different way. And so a lot of times we'll say something that we think is completely benign, just a simple, can you help with the trash? And they throw this huge meltdown tantrum. Oh my gosh, you asked me to do everything, blah, blah, blah. And then we're like, oh my God, they're so lazy. Why can't they help? And we're not realizing that so many other things are going on. We don't know what else has been going on in their life up till now. And being a teen every day is extraordinarily stressful. I'm sorry, it's far more stressful than being an adult
Yeah.
because you don't have the same ability and experience and tools to manage and deal with all the stresses in life. And they've got stresses coming at them from every single direction. And so by the time you ask them to take out the garbage, they may just be spent at this point. They also want control. They need control. Teens are at this point where they're trying to establish themselves as an individual separate from the family. So when we, in our minds, are asking them kindly to help, they're hearing it as we are controlling and demanding them to do something that they don't want to do again. And so they will push back because it's like, I want to be able to control what I do. And when you tell me to do it, I feel like you're asking me to obey, and that's uncomfortable to me. And so it's really, again, understanding it's not about having our teens obey us, because we don't want to raise adults that are compliant and just obey people. It makes our lives easier as an adult, as a parent, to just have them obey. But is that who you want to raise your kid to be?
Oh, I'm so glad you touched on that point, because I keep that in mind all the time. When one of my little ones was around 5, I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, she's got like a smart mouth." And a family member said, "Don't look at it that way. Think of it as she's got a voice and she's not afraid to use it." And that's going to be such an amazing leadership skill when she gets older. You just have to know how to tame it. Instead of suppressing that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness that she told me that, because I didn't think of it that way. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you, because you are not afraid. You're that child, I tell her, that I wish I would have been. That because I was that shy kid who was told to be quiet, don't be too, to be submissive pretty much. And that's dangerous, because so many things can happen to a child that is not willing to stand up for themselves.
Well, and one of the things, and I love that she told you that, and being able to shift how we're seeing things is so essential. And, I take all these, I love like online courses, and I'm in like Clubhouse now, and there's like all these people on mindset, improving your mindset and getting past this, as adult, getting past this belief that we're not enough and that we don't deserve it. Well, where did that mindset come from?
Yeah.
It came from when we were teens and told that we needed to obey and do what everyone else said, and that we felt like we weren't good enough and our voice wasn't valued. And that's when our brain is developing again. And that's when we're creating this definition of who we are and how we view ourselves in the world is being defined during adolescence, when we are criticizing and yelling and getting upset with our kids. That is who they become. And then we spend the rest of our lives taking all these courses to reset our mindset and believe in ourselves, which is why I aim for the adolescents, because I want to prevent that. I want to help parents create and help them build their teens' mindset and belief in themselves now. And that does not mean setting them up where they can just do whatever they want. I mean, a lot of parents go, oh, you just want me to let them do whatever they want. No, 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 no. It's understanding where they're coming from and being able to work through that with them and teach them the skills. that they need and help make sure the messages you're giving them is that you are wonderful. You are fine. I love you for who you are. I value what you bring to the table. Some of your behaviors, though, some of the way you're dealing with things, those need to be addressed. But those are behaviors. That's not them that's broken. It's their behaviors that we need to find new ways to behave, right?
Yes. Oh, I love that you said that it's the behaviors, not them. That's so
Mm-hmm.
important, especially as a young person, because that self-blame, right? Like what you said, is like, I can't do anything right. I've heard my kids say that. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's when I know it's like, okay, that's my keyword, my cue to back off, to do more positive reinforcement than to like, hey, you forgot to make your bed and you haven't done your bathroom, or you haven't done this and that, you haven't taken the dogs out or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I had to like pull back and pretty much reassess and make sure that I'm not injuring more than giving out that love and that positive reinforcement. So you have this part of your business and what you do, and let's talk a little bit now about the podcast.
Sure. So I have a podcast, Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam, which is about parenting teens with me, Dr. Cam, made it quite obvious. And there's a lot of times I get on and I just share things about what I've observed. Now I'm having guests come on every Tuesday and Thursday with me. So I'm inviting guests from all different areas to share their insights and tips. And then occasionally I'll have my daughter, who's a teenager, come on completely not pre-planned, unscripted, and we'll just talk about what's going on. And I love doing that because I really use that to kind of model how we talk with one another in our conversations. And it's funny because it tends to be people's favorite episodes are the ones where it's just me and my daughter just talking. And so that is, yeah, I think I've got about 60 episodes now, and they're just different episodes about handling different things with our teens. And it's about encouraging too. I understand, like I said, I'm a mom too, and I'm dealing with all the same things everyone else is dealing with. I just have more tools and understanding of what's going on. And those are the things that I just want to help other parents have.
That's awesome. So, and where can we find your podcast?
It's everywhere. But if you go to my website, Ask Dr. Cam, AskDrCam, askdrcam.com/podcast, you will see all the episodes are right there and the links to all the places that you can go listen to it and download it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And do you have any upcoming events or anything of the sort that people should be aware of?
Yeah. So one of the things I had so many amazing guests that came on, and my podcast lasts 15 minutes to a lot of them are going a half an hour because we have so much. But I'm bringing a lot back for a power hour, a parenting teens power hour, which is every first and third Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's free. We go through Facebook, my Facebook private Facebook group. I can say that my private Facebook group. And so we broadcast that live, and people can go and ask questions, and we just talk for a full hour about their topic. And so you can find that again at askdrcam.com/power hour. And you can find all the information on how to register for that, so you can get into the Facebook group and get all the information to sign in.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I also want to mention that you do offer coaching, right?
I do. I offer one-on-one coaching. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Cam. This has been such a good conversation. I'm looking forward to learning more about you. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Well, there you have it. Dr. Cam is brilliant. I love what she does. And, she didn't mention this. I don't think she mentioned this during our conversation, but she has the Power Hour. So take advantage of her Power Hour. It's an incredible and accessible tool to have so that you can improve communication. Even if you think that you have really good communication with your children, just go for it anyway. Give it a try, because you never know. Sometimes we think that we're doing a really, really good job, and then we find out that our kids are struggling with something, maybe not particular to us, but it's just helpful, and I just believe in the power of getting some type of outsider perspective, especially from a professional, because I know when you go to family or friends, they might be biased, but professionals will actually see things a lot clearer. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, and click the little bell so you're alerted every time I publish a new video. And if you want even more insights, please subscribe to the DaliTalks newsletter at DaliTalks.com. Lastly, if you would do me the honor of giving me some feedback, I'd love to know your favorite takeaways were from this conversation, what it is that you learned, and if you have any questions, you can do all that in the comments. Okay, so until next time, thank you for watching.